Holly Cotton here, and I am joined today by Mr. Rudy Rush. And if you guys don't know Rudy, first of all, you're missing out. Make sure you follow him on all of his social media platforms. But Rudy is a comedian, an entrepreneur, a radio personality doing big things, especially this year. I'm super excited to see all the great things that he's doing. So, welcome, Rudy.
Welcome. Thank you, Holly, for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So, first, I wanted to ask you this because I know Rudy and I have actually networked at other events, so I kind of know his story and where he sort of reinvented himself. And that's a huge thing that I love to talk about on my platform. I like
Hmm.
to talk about because everyone thinks it's so easy. They see you now opening for Bill Bellamy and all of these people, and also not only that, but having your own name and your
Yeah.
own, yeah, right, right. We just do that for fun. We steal somebody too. But one of the things I know that we had talked about before was how you kind of didn't know if you were going to keep on this path. So we're going
Hmm.
to call this the Reinventing Rudy segment. So can you tell
I
us
like
about
that.
how you went from radio personality to what you're doing now?
So, so initially, I was a stand-up comic who went into radio, and the thought process, and we'll get to the reinvention part. It's been a long trip for me. I'm in 30 years this year in May of doing stand-up comedy. I started when I was 19, so you could do the math behind that. But I got into radio for personal reasons, and it's much like making decisions in life like, oh, I'm going to stop going to school and focus on this for a couple of years. I'm going to start a family. I've seen women get pregnant and say, I'm going to spend more time being a stay-at-home mom instead of being a career woman. So, my choice to go into radio, one, I was really good. And two, the avenue I was trying to take was one that could be lucrative and also keep me under the radar. I didn't know it at the point in time, but I really am someone who is, I don't know if I'm not an extrovert and I'm not an introvert. You know what I mean? I'm very good around people, but I do like my solitude. And I kind of was going for that whole, like, I don't need to be in a restaurant and people coming up to me asking me for this and that. And radio provided that with the understanding that, people, unless they went online and looked me up, they couldn't see. But then at the time I got into radio, there was a huge surge in the internet, and it became everybody's being a star because of Facebook and Instagram and all these other things. And so that, coupled with some politics in radio, that it's a lot to go into, but at the same time, being a comic in the radio world, it wasn't perceived really well because Steve Harvey and Ricky Smiley and the likes of D.L. Hughley took up so much real estate. They was like, we ain't letting this young handsome dude become nothing more than what he's right now. We're gonna keep him in the studio. He can't be a comedian. And it kept me out of comedy for so many years. I just got a chance to just cherry pick. So I did albums and I did festivals. So I kept my comedy game sharp, but not as sharp as I would have liked, because I could have really doubled up on my careers doing radio and stand up, like much comics are given the opportunity. But like I said, it was a mental game for me, trying to just protect that little egg I had in radio, and I stayed there maybe a little too long. But luckily I had the opportunity to have friends like a Bill Bellamy or some more to be like, hey, listen, you're still one of the great comics, not only as a friend, but like, we see it when we put you out there. It's a great opportunity. So now the reinventing of myself is taking place, and that's a great way to describe it, because that's exactly what it is.
Yes, yes, and that's what I love about I want to just say one thing about what you just said, because people don't realize the lack of privacy that comes with being a face, because it's so easy. It's like, oh yeah, I want to be famous. I want to be famous, and now everybody's like in your business.
No, I'm telling you, Holly, you could take some of the top, and and some people are built for it. Like, like I would use Kevin Hart as an example. Even, working with Bill Bellamy, they really know how to, and I've been around some athletes as well who do really well at taking people on. And they know how to just kind of diffuse certain situations. And I've seen others not handle it so well. And I think I'm a diffuser, so I would handle it well, but just it's just so overwhelming at times that you got to really be prepared. And as an older gentleman now, in my age, 40 plus, I can handle it a lot more than I could when I was young. I think it was a bit overwhelming for me, and I didn't want to let people down by showing them like, hey, I really don't want to be bothered with that. You know what I mean? You doing some extra stuff, and
Right.
so yeah, so no, it is very tough. So be careful what you wish for people who want fame, because it's a lot.
Right. That's what, and I actually had a conversation with someone today actually and I was like, you don't know me. Like you see me on social media and you see
Yeah.
the things that I do, and I love being personable and talking to people, but you really don't know me. You don't know
Mm-mm.
anything about it. And I know that that's hard for you guys, especially because people, they're laughing, and laughter kind of brings everyone together, and they're like, what's
Yeah.
up, and then you're like, but
Yeah.
no.
And it's crazy because it's not like a singer, because like most singers ain't gonna have guys coming up to them, like, yo, what's up, man? I love when you sang that one song about the, like, so with us as comics, you get everybody. You get dudes that's like, yo, I love that joke about the blanket, or I love that one about the dog. And then you get females as well that love the comedy or may find you attractive, or whatever. It's just everybody really loves a funny guy.
This is facts. That's fact. That's
Hmm.
how I
Hmm.
keep my men, Rudy, because they love me being funny. So I'm an informal comic. Anyway, I digress. So, so the first question I wanted to ask, because as we're talking about being funny, I think it's so important to also talk about some of the struggles that you guys have as comedians.
Yeah.
So, my question is, what is something, or is there a situation that you experienced, or is there a joke in back of your head where you're like, I will never try that again, where you thought it was hilarious and everybody was like, this ain't it. This ain't
No,
it.
you know, there's never been a joke that I've done that probably, I wouldn't say there wasn't a joke that didn't work, but there's never been a joke that I wrote that I couldn't work out into being a good joke. But I have had situations, especially working in this new rebuilding stage. I do a lot of opening, which means I'm the first comic on. And if you interview any comic, if you said to them, you ask them a question, where would you like to go on first? If it's a show of 5 people, where would you like to go on? Most would say either last as the headliner, and or second or third. Then no one wants to go on first. And so this new road really has humbled me to the point where I have to go on first a lot, but it's really galvanized, really made me very strong in the sense of, everybody's first impression of what the night's going to be like has to start with me. And it actually kind of finishes with me too, because by the time I get into a lather, everybody's like, yo, you were one of the funniest, if not the funniest guy that night. And I like that part, but it is a struggle. So you have to kind of gauge the crowd. Sometimes if certain things don't work out, because I have a little icebreaker that I do in the beginning of the show, and if the people who are working in conjunction, like a DJ or somebody that works with the club, is not in sync, it really kind of throws me off. But it when I was younger, it used to really rattle me, and now I just kind of like morph into something else, and I always hit the goal. So yeah, so it's not a joke per se, but it definitely gauging the audience initially is a huge thing. It's big for every comic. Every comic comes out and they want to make that first initial statement. Even famous guys and famous females that come out on stage, that first word that comes out of your mouth, if it's not something humorous, people are kind of scratching their head like, what can we expect? But when you hit it out the gate right away, they're like, oh, hold on, who's this guy? He's funny. And so
Right.
so yeah.
And you also have, I know I've been to a few comedy shows in my time also. And I know I'll see people that they try to sit like right in the front and they try to keep a stone face. It's almost like they go in with the mission that I am not going to laugh. I am not going to show them I'm having a good time. So it's it's like a challenge for you guys.
And it's funny because I've seen those people before, but they don't. And like I said before, I've been through the trenches of, coming up in New York City, some of the hardest places to perform in New Jersey and New York. And I mean, as long as they're not yelling and throwing beer bottles and chicken bones, like I'm good. But when you get people like that, and I think myself, I become a crowd favorite because not only it's a funny thing to talk to people, and as I'm telling the joke, I'm talking to you. So I see that person who's actually stone faced, and I'm like, yo, bro, you know, if your boy asks you to go to the bathroom and he's like, he lights up all of a sudden, like he talking to me in front of everybody. He ain't trying to play me out or nothing like that. I just try to make everyone feel like they're a part of my show without being the show, if that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, I welcome those people who kind of feel like, oh, I'm not into laughing or whatever, because they all seem to break down at some point, and they love the show.
Yeah, and I'm always like, but you bought a ticket for a comedy show. You're at a comedy show, but you're like, I ain't laughing. I don't get it either. I
Yeah,
don't get it.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
get it. So, to kind of sidebar about what you just said about talking about the audience and things. Now, let me tell you guys, if you've never been to one of Rudy's shows or heard Rudy talk, he loves to talk about middle aged women. Okay.
Yeah,
Now, I'm fine and all, but I am technically a middle-aged woman. So
yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes I'm always like, who the hell is he even talking about? Because I don't fit any of those categories. So what I wanted to know is I'm not going to tell any of your jokes because they have to come see you. But how do you come up with that material specifically about the opposite sex? So is it stuff that you have experienced? Is it personal experience? Because I know you have the one about the two robes. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, so you had to know, is it something you heard, or is this personal experience with people that you've dated that are middle age and you're like, this why your ass old?
No, let me tell you something. I'm probably close to stop. I'm gonna stop talking about middle aged women or older women, even though it's such a fun topic and I'm so very well versed at it, because it is a lot of personal experience. A lot of comics, and I take it as a compliment, but so many comics are now, anytime you hear somebody say Miss Shirley and Miss this, Miss Barbara, I did that so long ago that, it was part of comics just kind of ribbing me. Sometimes we'd be out somewhere and the old lady would walk past with a cane or a walker. They'd be like, yo, Rue, you ain't gonna push up? Because I always kept the older lady with me. Not, and it's not old, but I always had a grown woman. So if I was, in my early 20s, I have a 40-year-old chick with me or something. I always had this, and all these young people running around the bar. We stay in their class and she got on the fur and she just chilling. But I did get a bunch of my jokes from experience, and they always morph into another avenue or another sector. When, like, okay, that would be funny. Like, right now I'm older. I don't call women cougars anymore, and that used to be a part of my shtick. But now I use it to say, well, I can't call women cougars anymore. They're my peers. Like we're in the same age group. And one of the things that come with that is just some funny extra, jokes, like you got to have certain things to be my lady now. Like if you over 60 and I'm dating you, if you ain't got no parking sticker, like I don't know what we gonna do,
You that little bit, I was dying when you were talking about that. The perks of
So
dating an
it's
older
funny. I
woman.
have a friend. I went to the back of, like, so she has and I can't tell too much information because she'll kill me. But like she's in the industry and we really good friends and stuff. And I went to go use her restroom. As soon as I close the door, it's a nice fluffy robe. It's just like a couple robes on it. I said, women who have robes on the back of their bathroom door, they grown. And it's a compliment in the sense of it's classy. Young women, they just have t-shirts or they walk around, with no clothes on at all. So it's just the showing of two different ages and groups, doing some stuff.
Well, I don't have a robe. I have a fluffy robe I use when I dye my hair, but
See, you got one though.
I ain't got two. And I will have you know, Rudy Rush, that when we were in college, Victoria's Secret kind of had just started coming out. Like when I was in
Uh
college, Victoria's Secret was like just the new place, or like the,
huh.
the thing. And they used to have these satin like robes that if you had one of those Victoria's Secret
You
satin
was
robes,
on point.
you had money, like you was doing it, you was sexy, you could put that on for your little boo in college. So I have we were 20 and we were wearing robes.
But let me tell you what these young women don't know about what grown women know. Like I went to a grown woman house one time. She had on, and I don't think young woman has heard this term. She had on a negligee. You don't hear that no more from no young people. Young people don't know what no negligee is. I was like, oh, let me go get my attaché case and come over here and
They don't even know how to spell negligee. So,
okay.
oh my
Yeah.
God, that is so funny. And so, one of the things too, I also was going to ask you about is, so how do you, because I know that's what separates good comedians from just people. And I know, just like I said, just being around a couple of comedians, seeing different shows, I always hear when they do have someone opening, and you guys always kind of pinpoint the same things as what differentiates a good comedian from someone that's like fishing for stuff. So,
Mm-hmm.
how do you guys process? Because you have a lot of great, and it's not even jokes. It's just your storytelling is so
Mm-hmm.
entertaining. So, how do you, just in a regular daily basis, Rudy Rush? How do you
Mm-hmm.
come up with this material?
Well, thank you for that compliment. But honestly, it's like, there's some things that come to mind often. And then I try to kind of like, put it in words. And sometimes there's some jokes that I tell, even some of the newer jokes, I wrote them like 2 years ago, but I just didn't know how to tell it. There was something in me that just, at the time it was funny, but then I just couldn't figure out the words to say it in a live setting. So, like, I'm going through some situations right now with my youngest daughter, right? Her mom and I back and forth in court or whatever. And, I think it's unnecessary. But, the one thing that I am finding out is that, it's much like you failing a class or having bad credit, you ain't the only person going through it.
Facts.
So that's one of the things that I give a break to it about. I don't go so hard in as far as my distaste for the situation, but I do have my fair share of little things that I take from it. So one of my new jokes is that everybody they make co-parenting seem like a really sexy situation. Why don't you guys co-parent? I said, well, I'm supposed to get a schedule to see my kid from somebody who wouldn't give me back my toaster. Like like she don't want to give me no toaster. How am I supposed to see my kid? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And people are so taken in by just the pure comedy of the realness of that. Like, to give you an example, this old white lady, I told that joke at a festival, and this old white lady was like, my favorite was the toaster. She didn't want to give up that toaster. You're not gonna see that baby. Like, it's like people, I like my jokes to kind of resonate. Like, you've been to comedy shows where somebody said, yeah, my dog was outside and the alien came down and my dog was smoking weed in the backyard with the alien. I think it's funny, but it's not realistic to me. I'm not bashing a comic for that, but it's for me. I want you to leave with something like, "Yo, I did that. Oh man, that happened to me." And that's the biggest thrill I get after shows. People come up and like women are like, "Yes, my husband, he had a bump in his behind and he showed it to me." Like, it's always something that people go through.
Yeah, I don't even want to know the personal link to that bump on the butt story. 'Cause
No,
that,
you know what? I've never had it, but I just know that there is a kinship in a relationship where a man, if anything is wrong, he got a bump on his foot and on his tongue. If anything, listen, I'm going to tell a story, and I'm sorry I'm putting it out there, but Holly and I, we're cool, but it was so funny that somebody was playing a joke on me, and the dude was like, "Yo, man, you ain't chewing no gum, your breath stink." Man, I had Holly like checking my breath, like, and you're such a good friend because you was like, let me smell. I was like, I can't believe I got this girl smelling my breath. And what if it was stink? I was like, but I feel like I always freshen myself up. So things like that, men will always go to a woman. How do I look when I'm dressed? Because I dress myself. So sometimes I'm like, is this silly? Is this crazy? Because sometimes you take fashion chances and you look a little sick. But yeah, so yeah, that's just the realness of my jokes.
and imagine because I'm a nurse. So when
So
so
you seen everything.
and and so I'm the one that they send the picture to, and they
Oh,
ask.
see, what is this bump? Like, where's this bump at? Like,
Right, right. I've seen so many things, and I'm like, listen, this has crossed over the friend line, and I have to look at this person now. And
that's funny.
so I love that. I love that. I love that. So on the flip side of that, as we're talking about funny, all of this stuff, has there ever been a joke that has offended someone? And I know there's a funny joke that I've heard a few times about like Dave Chappelle and people
Uh-huh.
boycotting him and things like that. So
Uh-huh.
have you ever told a joke about anything where everybody was like, or not even everyone, but just
But
a
just one
small
person in
little,
particular
yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, a little tyranny started?
So I'm pretty much the easygoing. I don't rock the boat kind of guy, but there was a time I was in man in Great Lakes in the great not Great Lakes in Lake Placid, and it was a literary event. So I was hosting an event. It was a storytelling event, and it was I think I might have been the only black guy there. But there was a joke that I told, and I used the word fruity to describe a gentleman asking another guy to go to the restroom with them. Like, yo, and if you notice in my act, I actually don't say it anymore. I don't use the word fruity anymore. I'm like, yo, I just told you about that. You know what I mean? Like, but I said the term fruity. And this one lady, she came up from all the way upstairs. She had the short little haircut, little stumpy little lady, and she looked like she could have been a part of the community, but I wasn't judging her or whatever. She looked like an old school teacher, but she was upset. And meanwhile, everybody's giving me all these accolades. Oh, you were so great, and I thought she was playing at first. She was like, "I'm mad at you," and I was like, "Well, what's What? Then when I realized she wasn't playing, she's like, "You said the word fruity," and everybody laughed. I was like, "Well." I quickly diffused it by saying, listen, I'm not here to tell you whether or not you're offended. If you're offended, then I offended you. I said, but that wasn't my intent. And I didn't continue to bash the community. I said one thing and I made an observation. And it was one that if it bothered you, then I apologize. But if you have an issue, you could take it up with the people who produced the show. But other than that, there's nothing else that I can have a sit here and have a conversational argument to say whether or not you're offended. If you are, then you are. But this was my intent. It wasn't to bash or be nasty to people. It was just to make a joke and keep it moving, which I did. And then she went away because she didn't know where to go from there. She wanted to really dig in, and she thought I was going to push back. And this one other lady was like, "You handled that so well." I'm like, there's ways you can talk to people, and so, but that was one time that it actually happened, and I remember because it was the one time that it happened. But anything can happen. You could talk about Alzheimer's. You could talk about my mother dying. Somebody can walk out like, "My mama died yesterday," and you brought that up. Like, you can't you can't help but to offend somebody. Everybody's gonna have a trigger point.
Right, right. And I talked to Corey B before. I had her on my show, and she if anyone doesn't know who Corey B, she's awesome. She actually opens
She
for
is.
Monique. She's so funny. Oh my god, I'm about to pee on myself with Corey B all the time. But we were kind of talking about that, and I asked her, being a woman comedian, and she was explaining how there's certain criteria and expectations just for you being a woman
Mm,
and coming out, and like it's totally acceptable to talk about sucking penises and having sex and being this the loud black
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
woman. But whenever you're trying to make a joke about something else, now all of a sudden people are overly sensitive. Well, why aren't
Yeah.
you sensitive when I'm talking about the other stuff, but you're only sensitive about this? So I know
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of hard for you guys to tread that line. So I
Yeah, I remember this one older lady. I forget where we was. I think it was recently. We were somewhere, and this one older lady was like, "Oh my god, I had such a good time." She was an older lady, and she said, "I wish you guys wouldn't use the B word so much as far as referencing women." And I was quick to tell her, I was like, "Well, ma'am, I didn't say the B word not one time." But she felt that comfortable coming to me, as opposed to people know who they talking to too. They
right.
know who they could complain with because the other people don't care. Some comedians are raw dog. They be like, I don't give a damn, B. They call an old lady that. So she came to me and I was like, so people get offended by the smallest things. If you had a good time, ma'am, you had a good time. The B word ain't gonna kill you.
Right, right. And they just suck the life out of it. I couldn't do it. Like I'm just funny on just in natural personality, but I
Who
couldn't do
told you?
it.
Who told you you was funny? No, I'm playing. You are.
Everybody says I'm hilarious. And I
That's
think
funny.
I'm the funniest person I know. No,
Okay, okay.
I'm kidding.
You know a lot of people too.
And I do and do. Um, so what back to the reinvention of Rudy and this new
Hmm.
chapter that Rudy has, and
Yeah.
and being on the road and being caught between this whole part of I'm doing this, I'm doing big shit this year, I'm making stuff happen,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and but I'm also a dad. So
Yeah.
I know that that comes with a lot of sacrifice that a lot of people don't know about because
Yeah.
you are a good dad and you love your kids, and it's hard to be on the road and stuff like that. So can you give us some insight on some of the things that you feel in trying to balance that male want to be a dad life with
Yeah.
the Rudy Rush life?
Well, you know what? It's funny you asked that. Be careful what you wish for, because a lot of guys who maybe, you know, and most guys maybe were married before and out of the relationship, or have a child with another woman or whatever, and you're still a good dad, you're involved in whatever. It still comes with a sense of privilege, and you think you want to do all the things that a father doing. I'll take him to the games and I'll come to school or whatever, but until the tide turns and you really have to have that responsibility, which I've always respected my daughter's mothers for being the custodial day-to-day parent. But I have a now 16-year-old who lost her mother when she was 14, who's going to be living with me, and it's a bigger situation than you can care to know. And so, just doing stuff and being around and being active with the girls. But like I said before, radio provided me an opportunity to be still, to be stationed. And now, in order for me to achieve the things that we were about to achieve in terms of resurrecting Rudy Rush, it's going to require me to be gone a lot. So I got to just figure out a way, which I will. I have a strong base around me, and hopefully, with some lucrative situations which are in the works. Things like a nanny, and just making sure I capitalize on all of the time that I have with the girls as they grow. And I have, like I said, the 16-year-old, she's a beast, and so is the young one. So they get along perfectly. And now the older is at the age where they can both kind of be together while dad's out working or whatever, with granny in the wings and stuff like that. So I'm just working on plans so I can always be a part of the girl's life.
Okay, I love that. Oh, I love dads. And not only that, but you about to have a whole lot more dad jokes because now that you're gonna live with now you can be like,
Man,
fellas, fellas with daughters. Fellas with daughters.
the funniest thing is, I think right now that I'm developing an understanding, like, I lied to my parents all the time, and I hate being lied to by my kid. The 16-year-old, she don't do nothing but lie to me. And it's not about the boys and things like that. It's the simple things, like phone calls or money that I gave her to use it for this, and she uses it for
It's the
that.
privacy. It's like they don't know. They think I don't know. They think you're gonna be angry, and it's also their way of like their autonomy and being private. But it's like, yeah, heck, two of
Yeah,
them.
you don't understand. Your rent is being paid for. You being fed. Like, you have no skin in the game. You should be giving up all your information. But I laugh because I did it. So why should I flip my lid when it's happening to me?
Yeah, my mom. I remember she was like, "You gonna see when you have kids, it's gonna come back threefold." And I'm like, "Mother, please." Oh,
And
oh my God, it's like
now it's
30-fold. Oh my God. Okay, last question, Rudy.
okay.
And I know, like you said, you kind of have gone through various levels of this whole career path and this genre of comedic performing and things. So what advice do you have for any upcoming comedians or people trying to get into this comedy role?
I would say the first thing you should do is get my online course. It's coming out very soon. Rudy Rush's Comedy College. But no, honestly, if you're trying to get into it, one thing you need to realize is everybody's funny now, and it's not so much stand-ups. It's the world in general. All the commercials are based from a funny directive. Even when you have something like TikTok or Instagram, you got people who are more famous than your favorite comedian because they have skits and all these other little antics that they do. So it's a very tough terrain, but there's one. It's a terrain that you can actually navigate if you're serious enough. And that's the one thing I take solace in, is that my skills and my talent level allow me would allow me to do all of that. But now when you take the cream up and you put me on stage, you can't beat that. You take the top comics in the world, your favorite comic, sit him down, he knows who I am. And that's the goal. And now it's take it from that to get everyone else to make me a household name. So that's where we're going.
Okay, okay. Yeah, and that's a good point because I say that all the time. Like I see other people's podcasts or I'll see like reels on Instagram of other people's podcasts and all they doing is talking about sex. And and I'm just like, it's so easy. Like it's such easy topic,
Yeah,
but I
it's
want
low
to
hanging fruit. Yeah.
I know, but I want to continue my platform. I want to continue to be the change that we need. I want to keep showing my daughter, my son that, this having a heart and doing the right thing and using your platform to show other people doing great things is the way that I'm going to be successful and stay
Yes.
successful. But yes, I know I'm always like these skits, if I hear one more skit about sucking penises or whatever, but I can't do it. Um but it's like 8 million views and I'm like,
It's crazy. They give the algorithms to all the crazy people doing all the crazy stuff. Because I'm like, I put out some stuff that is hilarious,
you do.
and they just totally give me 100 100 views or 2,000 engagements or whatever, but it never hits that 100,000 mark, 50,000. But I'm okay with it because one time, or I've gone into a barber shop, or I go to play basketball, or I see some old friends. They'll be like, "Yo, your Instagram is popping, dog." So I know that people are seeing it. It's just a matter of it, starting to turn over till I can start getting people into theaters and clubs and arenas and stuff like that, and it's gonna happen.
Oh yeah, for sure, and that's going to lead into but like my reel that got a million, it's like 1.5 million views on
Mm,
Instagram is literally where it was my birthday and I was like walking towards my daughter recording in a dress, and
wow.
it's like 1.5 million views, and I'm like, what? I'm walking. I'm not even saying anything
Oh, what kind
witty.
of dress you have on?
I was fine. I was looking fine, but I'm just saying it was very classy. It was very
Yeah.
classy, but it was
let,
my
let me tell
birthday
you
dress.
let me tell you, Holly, during the COVID and I wasn't working, I was 2 minutes. I swear, before Bill Bellamy called me to go on the road with him, I was like 2 seconds from taking off my drawers, getting a soft pair of gray sweatpants, and starting the OnlyFans. I was like, it's go time.
I'm
call me
telling
Mister
you, I'm telling.
Call me Mister Hippie. I'll be all the hip shaking and all that. But no, yeah, people are getting paid in ways that we have never seen before, and it's not very hard to make a lot of money when you're just being silly. People are silly; they're not so much funny. People are silly, and they get paid for it.
Exactly, exactly. We ain't hating on it. We ain't hating on it.
No,
But we
not at
also
all,
just
because I
saying
can't
that
wait to do. Yeah,
I know, but we also just saying that quality shit is around too. So,
yes,
I
yeah,
digress.
yeah,
Okay, so Rudy, to wrap
yes,
up everything, let us know about any of your upcoming projects that we can support you on. I know you have some stuff that's, we got to sign an NDA for, so we can't talk about that. But I know you do have a lot of things coming up. So anything that you have, I know you talked about the course that's in the making, anything else that you have that we can support you on your website, drop any social media handles, all of that stuff, go.
yeah. All right, so listen, you all can find me at Rudy Rush on everything. So that's on TikTok, on Instagram, Facebook. I have a few things coming up. One is a couple of things that I'm very proud of. One is going to be a book, and it's going to talk about the situation about me and my children, but not to kind of bash or talk about their moms and stuff. It's also going to talk about my journey and how I became the type of person that would seek out a woman like that. How I was affected as a kid. How I feel about my father and men, how I was a hypocrite because I was only taught one way, things like that, that men and women need to kind of hear both sides coming from a person who is not coming from a victim standpoint. So that book, I'm very encouraged and happy about the process of writing that. Also have an online course. And I'll tell you this, if you had Kevin Hart or anybody else of that nature do an online course, this is just like that, or maybe even better, because I've done so much more as far as different hosting gigs and television shows, and also, being the youngest host of Showtime at the Apollo of, ever. It's a lot that encompasses my career, that I can give these young talented men and women a really good platform to kind of just gauge how to get, not just be funny, but how to navigate the world of funny, and how to really make a large impression and be great at what you do, as opposed to just, like I said, being silly and standing on stage. It's much more layers, many more layers to it. So that's one of the things. And then touring, I'll be in a city near you. I'll be in Chicago on the 1st of February, the first weekend of February. I'll be in Dallas on the 1st of February. That's a Wednesday. So I got a bunch more dates coming through. Just follow me at Rudy Rush, and I'll, let you know what's coming up next.
Okay, I love that. I love that. So that's what we're going to call this episode, Reinvention of Rudy Rush.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
I love that. I love that. And so I always close my shows with a life check. So if you've read my book, Day One, you know that a life check is basically to reiterate everything that we've covered to a certain point and make sure that you can implement anything pertinent, anything that could help change your perspective on life or a situation. So today's life check is really, really easy. It's don't give up on your dream. Reinvent yourself how many ever times you need to get the version that you want. So if this is chapter 865, you know what? Rock it. This might be your year to win. So
And I'm
love
gonna let
that.
y'all know right now, Holly. I'm gonna do that because you know what? I'm not gonna be walking around looking like a gym coach no more. Like, like I look like a football coach. Like, yeah, man, and I wear these Under Armour. So I've reached out to a couple of people. This one young lady in particular, I saw she has this real fly style, and she was on Instagram, and we just had a light conversation. I feel like I need, now that I'm older, I need to, like, not dress in suits all the time, but definitely things that accent my build, but also say I'm grown, and this is a serious situation. So look out for that, because
Grown man status.
go
Love it.
grown man
Love it.
status. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love a man that ain't afraid of some patterns and some colors and different
That's all I
hues.
wear is black. That's it. So I'm
Yes.
looking forward to it.
If you guys ever see Rudy, he's the one that has the little uh tight t-shirt on. But the ladies love it. So
Thank you. Thank you. Put that part on there.
love it, love it. So that is Rudy Rush, you guys.
Thank you.